So she showed them text messages and Snapchats. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime, Crue Trime, Crue Trime, Crue Trime. Still saying Crue Trime, still saying it. My name is Sarah, and I have 2 thumbs. And what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day and put on my makeup at the same time. So if you are into that combination, then I think you should subscribe to this channel. Turn on all the notifications, and then that way you will never miss one of my terrible stories. Why do I keep doing this? I don't know. So, today's story has been recommended, and it's actually been covered a lot. So if you've already seen this one, sorry. Also, before I get into it, I don't really talk about the makeup as I'm applying it, but if you want to know what it is, then look down in the description box because everything is linked. Today's story, it definitely has some elements of other stories that I have covered of a similar nature. I will link those down in the description box if you just can't get enough. Creep. This is the story of Chandler Halderson. At 11:25 a.m. on July 7th, 2021, so this is very recent, 23-year-old Chandler Halderson arrived at the Dane County Sheriff's Office to make a missing persons report. Chandler's parents were missing, 50-year-old Bart and 53-year-old Krista Halderson. Chandler explained to police that his parents had left in the early morning hours of July 2nd for an emergency trip up to their cabin in northern Wisconsin to make some necessary repairs at the property after a storm, but then they didn't return as scheduled. And they weren't answering any phone calls or text messages. But cell phone service up at the cabin was spotty at best, so it wasn't unusual for text messages to take more than a day or so to transmit, I guess, which is why it took him a while to actually make the report. He last received a text message from his mom at 11 a.m.-ish on July 4th, but then nothing since. And it wasn't like his parents to just fall off the grid like that, especially his mom. The cabin was in a very remote kind of area, so Chandler was worried that something terrible might have happened. Well, after Chandler made this report, the police immediately released it to the public, to plead for tips or sightings or anything that they could use to help locate Bart and Krista and bring them home safely. So let's learn a little bit more about Chandler, shalln't we? Chandler Michael Halderson was born on March 15th, 1998 in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, to Krista and Bart Halderson. Krista and Bart had been married for about 4 years by the time little Chandler came along to join big brother Mitchell. Bart and Krista had both attended the University of Madison, but after the boys were born, Krista decided to stay home with them while Bart worked very successfully in accounting. All right, so the Haldersons had settled about 30 minutes north of Madison, and they were raising their family in Windsor. The boys were, pretty athletic. They were both on the swim team. They played a lot of sports. They really enjoyed the outdoors. They were Eagle Scouts. I'm pretty sure both of them were. So their house was in a residential neighborhood with neighbors pretty close by, although their yard was large enough that in the back they actually had a pond. And they would spend a lot of time just hanging out and fishing, and they also had a cabin up north at White Lake in Langlade County where they would vacation as a family. And the cabin was actually super rustic. It was built by Krista's grandparents in the 1940s. The Haldersons were just a very loving, normal, typical family. Bart was certainly the more structured one, and Krista was very nurturing and doting and almost helicopter mom. But in a good way. The bottom line is they were a very close-knit family, and as the boys got older, Krista went back to work as an administrative assistant at a local auto shop called Zimbrick Automotive. The Haldersons were doing great, financially stable, healthy, beautiful home, solid jobs, and the boys were growing up, becoming adults themselves. After graduating from high school, Chandler and Mitchell both pursued degrees in the IT field from Madison College, and by the time of this incident, 24-year-old Mitchell was already out of the house, engaged to be married. He was working in IT someplace, and 23-year-old Chandler was right behind him. You know, he was working part-time, doing IT for an insurance company, and he also volunteered with the local police department as a scuba diver on a rescue team, and he was about to graduate, or maybe had just graduated from Madison College with an IT degree, and he was very much looking forward to this dream job that he'd already lined up with SpaceX. Oh yeah, that one. Chandler and his longtime girlfriend Catherine, or Kat, were even about to move in together in Titusville, Florida to start their awesome adult life together. So, back to the investigation. The first place that the sheriffs in Langlade County, it's hard to say. The first place in Langlade County where the sheriff started to look was, the cabin. As I mentioned, it was really out there, remote, secluded. So once they finally got out there, actually it was Mitchell, the older brother, who met them out there. So with Mitchell's permission, they broke the lock, got inside, they're looking around, and it was undisturbed completely. Dusty, cobwebs, the grass was long. Nobody had been there in a while. Well, the investigators were investigating right away. They called the friends and family of the missing couple, Bart and Krista. Everyone they spoke to described them as hardworking, loving parents. They only wanted the very best for their sons. There was no drug abuse, no alcohol problems, no money problems, no legal trouble, nothing. Okay, very white bread, kind of boring. In a nice way. When they contacted Krista's work, they said that Krista didn't show up on Friday. You know, she hadn't called out. She just no-showed, which was very, very unlike her. Krista's co-worker and close friend Daniel Kroninger actually told the authorities that he and his girlfriend had driven over to Krista's house to check on her. They knocked on the door, and at first, nobody was home. They kind of peeked into the garage, and they could see that both of the cars were still parked inside. Extra weird. Eventually, the younger son, Chandler, came out in a towel. I guess he had been in the shower, didn't hear them knocking. He told them the same story that he had told the police when he made their report, that they had gone unexpectedly up north to the cabin. Well, Daniel then told police that when Krista didn't come to work on the following Monday or Tuesday, he called back Chandler and was like, yo, you need to file a missing persons report. Something is wrong. Well, as Chandler was speaking with the police, you know, they're kind of retracing his steps. What did he do? Where did he go? Who did he spend time with? Who did he talk to? All of that stuff. That gives them leads. That's how investigations work. Chandler told them that he had spent the 4th of July with his girlfriend, Kat. They were out at a farm property outside of town. The property belonged to Kat's mother's fiance. It was quite a large property. It had a really nice swimming pool. They had a barbecue, lots of fun 4th of July stuff, you know. So as the investigation went on and the police were talking to people and visiting places, they actually came out to the Haldersons' home that evening to speak further with Chandler. They noticed that Bart and Krista's cars were in the garage, and Chandler explained that he had helped his parents pack up the evening before. They were going up to the cabin to make repairs and to do some general maintenance while they were there. But when he woke up the morning of the 2nd, on Friday, they were already gone. They had left in the early morning hours, and they'd been picked up by some friends that he didn't know. Chandler showed the detectives around the house, and one of them noticed that there was a panel of glass missing from the fireplace enclosure. Chandler explained that the family dogs actually had broke it. They were chasing a ball and it hit the glass, whatever, and he'd actually gotten a piece of glass stuck in his big toe. And the injury didn't look fresh, so I guess that checked out. They also noticed in the house that the outline of a half wall next to the door was kind of present, I guess. Like there had been a half wall that wasn't there anymore and you could see the line on the floor. You get what I'm saying? There were also sections of the floor that appeared to be missing. I mean, were they in the middle of some home improvements around their house too? Okay. Now remember, Chandler had made this missing persons report at around 11:30 a.m. the day before, but it was already all over the news, and tips had started to come in from all over. Well, one of those tips was from Kat's mom's fiance, you know, the property owner of this farm that they had hung out at on 4th of July. She said that Chandler had actually come back to the farm himself around 5:30 p.m. the next day, July 5th, without Kat. He was asking if he could swim in her pool. She's like, okay, sure. Now, after about an hour or so, she checked to see if Chandler was still there because it was a hot day and she wanted to go swimming herself, but she preferred to swim naked. Sure, live your life, dude. Chandler was not at the pool, and the pool cover was actually still on, but she did see the car that Chandler had arrived in, a Subaru, which was actually his mom's car. This Subaru hatchback was down towards a shed south of the property near the wood line, and the hatchback was open. The investigators actually came out to the farm to, see it themselves and to speak with the property owner. She led them out to the pool and then down to the area where the Subaru had been parked by the shed, and there was still like tire marks in the tall grass. As they were walking toward the wood line, one of them noticed that buzzards were circling. That's not good. So, one of the detectives walked out a bit further into the rough brush, and he found a bunch of branches hastily piled up on top of a human torso. That torso, spoiler, belonged to Bart Halderson. So after searching the area, they also found a pair of scissors, a saw blade, and bolt cutters hidden in a nearby water tank. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, the police were following up on another interview with Chandler and also with his girlfriend, Kat, separately. They actually brought them each to the police station or the public safety station, whatever they call it. Now, Kat must have been a Crue Trime creep, as are we. So she knew that in a case like this, the police are going to look at the family first. So Kat talked about how much she really loved Bart and Krista, and she'd been dating Chandler for quite some time. She was pretty close to the family, even sometimes cooking for them. And she was actually getting pretty emotional. She was there for like almost 4 hours. Well, she wanted to do whatever she could to help clear Chandler as a suspect. There was no way that he was involved in something like this. She was very cooperative, and to be clear, she did not know about this torso that was found. Kat allowed the police to search her car. She even handed over her cell phone so that they could look through it and take whatever they needed. She gave them a total play-by-play of the weekend and where she had been, or where, she might have been hanging out with Chandler, including on that Friday when she brought a Swiffer and peroxide over because Chandler said he had cut his toe on some glass and needed to clean it up, the whole fireplace thing. Kat had an incredible memory, and she also kept receipts. So she showed them text messages and Snapchats that time-stamped and geotagged everything. In the other room, Chandler was kind of having a hard time keeping his story straight. He did admit to going back out to the farm alone, but he said it was to rehab his legs in the pool. I forgot about this part. So apparently, Chandler was recovering from an injury that he had suffered from like a slip and fall down the stairs at his house. And this had happened pretty recently, maybe just a couple weeks earlier. He was diagnosed with a minor concussion, but he also was experiencing, neck and back pain and some like numbness and tingling in his legs. So he was actually wearing a neck brace at this time. Remember, he was planning to move to Florida with Kat for this SpaceX job that was lined up in Titusville, but his head injury was so bad that he couldn't travel. But didn't he drive to the farm to go swimming that day? Anyway, well, as they're speaking with him, they're noticing that he has bruises on his legs and knees, and he has scratches on his legs like he's been walking through the bushes. Once the police that were talking to Chandler were alerted of this grisly discovery out at the farm, they started pressing Chandler pretty hard.
You need to tell us the truth, okay? This is your chance to tell us why. I'm not BSing you.
Then he asked for a lawyer.
Lawyer. I'm sorry. Say it again, Lawyer.
So once they found this body part, the police officially labeled the disappearance of Bart and Krista Halderson suspicious. And Chandler was charged with providing false information and was held on a $10,000 bond. On July 11th, a search warrant was executed at the Haldersons' home, and in the search, they discovered that Chandler had made 6 Google searches on his phone back-to-back on the morning of July 8th that referenced Body Found Wisconsin, Bart and Krista, and other searches. Investigators also recovered bullet casings and and an SKS rifle, Bart and Krista's cell phones and IDs, blood evidence from luminol testing. Look at this. This is the basement. Basement daytime? Basement luminol. and more than 200 charred human bone fragments. On July 12th, the torso that was discovered at the farm was officially identified as Bart, and in the autopsy it was revealed that the cause of death was homicide, including firearm injury. Bart had actually been shot with a rifle and the bullet had hit his spinal cord. That injury alone would have been fatal. Now, Chandler's girlfriend, Kat, actually had a second interview with the police about a week after the first one, and this time she came with a lawyer. And really that was just to make sure that she stayed on track. She was kind of a wreck. You know, I mean, at this point, the information regarding the remains was becoming public, and she started sort of doing the math from the weekend's events. So part of the reason that Kat kept so many receipts, especially as it related to Chandler, was that he kind of had a history of being a shitty liar to her, like cheating. They had always agreed to share their location with each other. Now, on the morning of July 1st, Kat and Chandler had a Snapchat exchange that made Kat kind of uneasy. It was about 7:30 in the morning, and Chandler was telling her that he had hardly slept and things hadn't been going well for him and his future was falling apart, like just very dramatic kind of language, alarming stuff. She pulled up his location and it showed that he was in a wooded area near the Wisconsin River. She recognized the area because it was near this isolated road that they would take to get to the river. There was like a swimming hole and they would go out there to hang out sometimes. What was Chandler doing out there at 7:30 in the morning? Was he about to... So she took a screenshot of the picture, this picture, just in case. And now she turned it over to the detectives. When the police went out to that area to search, they found a leg, a thigh, and a foot. That body portion was later determined to belong to Krista Halderson. Chandler Halderson was then charged with matching sets of crimes for his parents' deaths. 2 charges of first-degree intentional homicide, 2 charges of hiding a corpse, 2 charges of mutilating a corpse, and 2 charges of providing false information on a missing persons case. He, of course, pled not guilty to all charges. So at this point, you're probably screaming at the screen. Why? Also, why? I mean, why would Chandler have done such a thing? Like, why would a concerned son who reported his parents missing, a loving brother, a caring boyfriend, why would he kill and then dismember his own parents? Because, as the police would soon find out, nothing about Chandler Halderson's life was real. He was a lying liar face. And he wasn't even particularly good at it. So remember at the top of the story describing old Chandler. He was working part-time doing IT for an insurance company, he volunteered with the local police department as a scuba diver for a rescue team, and he was about to graduate or just had graduated from Madison College with an IT degree, looking forward to this dream job with SpaceX, right? Well, for starters, that job at the insurance company was totally made up. He was very easily able to fake it because it was a remote job. You know, he would wake up at 6 a.m., log in. You know, he was working from home like so many others since the pandemic. But turns out he was not on their payroll. Chandler had invested a lot of time in this lie. He had told his family that the reason that his paychecks were all jacked up is because at first he was labeled as like a hourly worker instead of a salary worker. Then the information on his direct deposit was wrong. And then, because the company owed him so much back pay, the bank thought the deposit was fake. Girl, he was in his room playing video games all day. I mean, I don't know how long he claimed to have been working for this insurance company and was tolerating this like crazy pay errors. What? Second, his volunteer scuba diver rescue team situation with the police department. The Madison Police Department doesn't even have a scuba diving rescue team. Third, Chandler was about to graduate from Madison College, but come to find out, he wasn't even enrolled. He hadn't taken a class in almost 2 years, and he had been making up fake faculty members and dodging these imaginary Zoom meetings and stuff to throw his dad off the scent. The SpaceX job was, of course, a lie. I mean, if you're gonna lie, Oh, and lastly, that slip and fall, concussion, brain bleed, hemorrhage, nerve damage, head injury, a bunch of baloney. I guess as the time to actually move to Florida with Kat was drawing nearer and nearer, he needed more time to, figure it the fuck out. Apparently, in the weeks leading up to the murders, Chandler's father, Bart, had been squinting a little harder at Chandler. If Chandler was working, why was he always broke? And how long are these payroll problems going to persist with this company? Also, why can't Chandler ever show us his grades from his college classes? I mean, yeah, you can't get an official transcript, but you can easily pull up an unofficial summary at any time. Chandler was always making up some kind of excuse. Enough was enough. Bart set up a meeting with Madison College and Chandler for 3 p.m. on July 1st. They were going to get to the bottom of it. Well, the trial began about 6 months later, which is actually pretty fast, I think. The prosecution outlined what they believe happened based on the evidence. So Chandler was backed into a corner. He knew that his web of lies was about to blow up in his face, and he was going to have to murder his way out of it. So on July 1st, 2021, Chandler and his father Bart were about to head out to Madison to go to this meeting that's going to expose him. Bart sent a text message to Chandler at 2:10 p.m. saying, "I'm ready when you are." That was the last message he ever sent because Chandler Halderson used an SKS rifle to shoot his father Bart at least twice, killing him. Knowing that his mother Krista was on her way home from work, he sent her a text message asking her to stop and pick him up some Mountain Dew and to let her know that Dad's cell phone had died. That bought him a few more minutes, and when she walked in, he was ready, and he shot her with the rifle too. Then Chandler set about dismembering the both of them. He used several cutting tools, hand saws, scissors, bolt cutters. All were eventually found near the torso at the farm. And from about midnight to 3 a.m., Chandler used the family fireplace to burn the pieces of his mother and father. The fire burned so hot that eventually he felt like he needed to pour water on it, and that burst the glass on the door. And that showed up as a flash on a neighbor's Ring camera. Chandler then took the rest of the pieces of his parents and deposited them in various places all around Dane County, Wisconsin. The Wisconsin River, the Roxbury Bridge, the LaSalle Farm. During the investigation of the fireplace, there were small bones like teeth and bone fragments like pieces of skull found in the ashes. But the only intact pieces of the parents found to date were the torso and the leg. During the 2-week trial, the prosecution brought out witness after witness to show that every part of Chandler's life was fake. They had countless text messages and emails that would show that this deception had gone on for a very long time and could have continued. If not for one thing. On June 29th at 2:19 p.m., Bart Halderson called Madison College, pretending to be Chandler. In the courtroom, the jury held their breath as Bart Halderson's voice filled the room.
Yeah, I tried requesting online and we never got them. And, other degree verification.
Bart learned that there was no internship awarded to Chandler. None of the advisors that Chandler had been communicating with were real.
Alyssa? Yeah, Alyssa? No.
Most of the classes that Chandler had attended, he had failed, and he actually had not attended classes for over 2 years. Everything that his son had been telling him for years was a lie, and 2 days after that phone call, Bart Halderson was dead. The defense presented no witnesses.
He's guilty, Judge, he's guilty.
The jury deliberated for all of 2 hours, which is probably as long as it takes to get through the jury instructions. Chandler was found guilty on all counts and was later sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. About a year into serving his sentence, the 2 charges of hiding a corpse were vacated because they should have been included as a lesser charge and not as a separate offense. I mean, it's all kind of a formality anyways, because the 2 concurrent life sentences that were imposed will keep Chandler Halderson from ever seeing the light of day again. And that, friends, is the story of Chandler Halderson. I really went for it with this makeup today, but they're not all winners. Anyways, if you are curious to know any of the makeup that I used in today's look, then just look down in the description box because everything is linked. If you have a Crue Trime story that you want to recommend to me, I would love to hear from you. There is a link to a Google document down in the description box. Just fill out all of the dirty details. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on all of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! I did not wet my sponge again. God, this doesn't look good, does it? Does it? Snapchats. Who did he? I am channeling my inner Amy Winehouse today. So, this is the story of Chandler Why can't I remember his name? Sorry. Does this look crazy? Chandler what's his name?